So after the PSP documentary retrospective video went really well, I decided that I wanted to kind of do a follow-up with it and kind of talk to you guys about why I really love the PSP, share with you my collection, both of consoles and games, and really just show you everything about the PSP collecting experience that I love. Also, I might sound a little bit different because the documentary retrospective videos I kind of put on a little bit of a performance, whereas I hope this will come across as feeling a little bit more personal, a little bit more laid back, and just kind of giving my opinions on things. I'm going to start by showing you guys my console collection, then I'm going to move on to my game collection, and then we'll kind of wrap things up at the end. I hope you guys enjoy it. This is something different for me. I really tried to go for something cool with the production quality on this one, so I hope you guys enjoy it and let me know what you think. Maybe we can do more of these in the future for other systems. So starting with my piano black PSP 1000, this is actually the first PSP that I ever owned. I got it pretty close to launch. The games I remember getting with it were Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops and Mega Man Powered Up. That's really all that I needed to keep me entertained. When I first got it, I played those games for hours and hours. Really enjoyed them, and I'll talk more about those in the future, but those are my biggest memories with the 1000. Next up is another 1000. This is my blue modded PSP. Now this one I don't play UMDs on because the UMD drive is kind of busted. It's just really loud. Customized it to kind of give it a Mega Man Legends, Mega Man Trigger theme with a blue faceplate. I kept the original buttons and all that. Gave it a nice little theme, and this is the one that I loaded up with a bunch of emulators to basically play, like, I'd say 75% of my retro game collection. So anytime I just need one to pick up because I know I want to play some retro games, this is usually the one that I go to. The PSP 1000 with a pink faceplate and the Bond logo on the back. Now this is another Mega Man Legends themed one, themed after Tron Bond. You can see the Bond engineering wallpaper here. I really enjoyed this one. This was actually the first PSP that I quote-unquote repaired and modded. It's really just a new faceplate and something to cover the UMD ring on the back, but it came out looking really nice. This is one of the PSPs that I go to play a lot, just in general. I just like holding it and playing it. The PSP 2000 in mint green. Now this one, I have to be honest, I don't really use this one as a PSP to play games. It's kind of what I install like a bunch of homebrew apps and stuff on. I do take this one with me to work a lot. I have installed a plugin on it that allows me to use it as a USB controller. So I'll take it to work and plug it into my laptop, and it lets me use it as a USB controller. It's pretty useful for on the go, and that's really all that I use it for. I don't typically play games on this one. I just use it for all sorts of strange experiments. The PSP 3000 in Spirited Green. Now I actually own 3 of these. I'm going to show you 2 of them because the third one is new, and I'll probably show that one at the end of the video. This is probably my favorite PSP model in my favorite color. I love this color, and you can see I love the pink and green combo as well. This came with Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker when I got it, and man, that game is great. Really shows what the PSP can do. We'll talk about that one more as well. Here's a customized 3000. I replaced the faceplate on this one because it was just thrashed, and also put a new screen into it. I call it the Green Goblin for obvious reasons. The color combination is pretty reminiscent of the Green Goblin. They are third-party buttons. The black buttons are actually original, but the D-pad and the power strip at the bottom, all that stuff, is new. I bought that on eBay for like $3, and it gave it a really unique look. Next up is my favorite customized console. This is a PSP 3000. It's the black and red God of War edition. You can see it's a little bit different. I put the faceplate and the buttons and everything onto a regular piano black PSP 3000 because the God of War ones have painted backplates, which means they chip really easily, and there's pretty much not a single one out there that still has the paint on it. So I thought this would look nice, and it did. I call this the My Chemical Romance edition. I really love this console. I put the extended battery on this one as well. And the PSP Go. I don't like the PSP Go. It's too small for my hands, but it does have a really cool form factor. And what I did with this is I put pretty much every retro game that I own on it, as well as my entire PSP and PS1 collection on the PSP Go. So if I really I need something quick, I don't want to bother with switching carts and all that, I grab my Go. I'll usually take it on quick trips or to work just to play retro games. Probably the pride of my collection here is the PSP E1000 or the PSP Street model. These were not released in the US, so I had to kind of hunt to get this, but the reason that it's a prized piece in my collection isn't because it wasn't released in the US, it's actually because of the condition this thing came in. It had a screen protector installed when it arrived, and I peeled it back just to look, and the screen is immaculate. So I left the screen protector that was on it on, this system is pretty much in perfect condition. The only thing that I would give a negative point to is the strip at the bottom is not easy to use. I don't like having to push down on the start, select, and all that stuff because they're not touch buttons, they're actually tactile. You have to press down on them. It can be a little bit hard to use them properly. And this final one is actually not mine. This is a PSP 3000 that I put together with spare parts from other mod projects. So as you can see, I put a skin on the back to cover the awful damage on the back. It is a new faceplate. I had to put a new power strip on this as well. And this is actually going to a friend of mine. Moving on to the games in my collection, I have a lot, so let's get started. Ace Combat X, Skies of Deception. Now, I haven't played this one much. In fact, you're seeing the first time I'm playing in the footage that I captured here, which is why it's so early in the game. But I played a lot of Ace Combat 4 on the PlayStation 2 back in the day, so I'm really excited to try this one out and get into it when I have a chance. It's not at the top of my list, but I got this in a lot at a yard sale, so I'm excited to try it someday. I just haven't had a chance to play it yet.
One bomber down.
Ape Escape on the Loose is a remake of the PlayStation 1 classic. Now, I do have some memories of playing this at a friend's house on the PlayStation 1 way back in the day, but I've never actually owned it until now. From what I played here on the emulator, it was pretty fun. I definitely want to put some more time into it, but it doesn't seem like the kind of game that's going to grip me, and that kind of makes sense given the age of the game and that it's just a port, but still, I'm very happy to have it in my collection.
Gotcha.
ATV Off-Road Fury Pro. Now, this is not my type of game, and as you can see, I had more fun in this game running around like an idiot and knocking the guy on the ATV off of it. Also, I thought the soundtrack was pretty bad. Now, I'm not a huge Call of Duty fan, but as soon as I started playing this, I realized that I might be missing out on something, so I'm definitely going to go back to this. This reminds me a lot, from what I've played, of the original GoldenEye on the N64 with the controls. It kind of, targets you to the nearest enemy. You don't have to necessarily aim. It actually seems like a pretty good game on the PSP, so I'm actually pretty excited to get back and try this one. Final Fantasy Crisis Core. Now, this was recently re-released. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and act like I've played through this whole game. I haven't. I played maybe about 10 hours into it. I had a really good time, and then I heard that the remake was coming, and I stopped playing it, and I haven't picked up the remake yet, but it started out on the PSP, and I remember I had a friend that was obsessed with this back in high school, so I really need to pick up that remake and check this game out. I'm sure it looks fantastic, and as you can see here on the PSP, it looks great as well. Definitely worth picking up on any console you can get it on. And I'm a big fan of old school fighting games. I don't really like modern fighting games that much, so Darkstalkers Chronicle the Chaos Tower being a launch title on the PSP was something that I was really happy about. Now, I didn't pick this up until a lot later, but I really love Darkstalkers. I really love Morgan and Lilith, and there's just a ton of cool characters, but obviously I like the succubus chicks, okay? Let's just get that out of the way. But this game is really fun. It has this really cool mode where you ascend a tower and you kind of pick paths, and it's like 100 levels. It's super fun, and this game isn't too expensive, so I'd definitely say this is like a must-have. If you're gonna pick up a PSP, you can't go wrong with a fighting game. Daxter is a 3D platformer on the PSP, and I have to say, for being such an early game in the system's lifetime, this is still one of the best, if not the best, platformer on the system that's truly an original idea. It is a spin-off to the Jak and Daxter series, but from what I remember, you never really got to play as Daxter in the original Jak and Daxter games, so having this around to kind of like give him his spotlight, and it's on a console that, at the time, Jak wasn't on, it was cool to see Daxter have his own little time in the spotlight, and I really enjoyed this game. Death Jr. Now, the first thing I'll say about this game is awesome concept, beautiful art style, reminds me of Tim Burton and The Nightmare Before Christmas. However, just from what I've played of this game, which is maybe about 2 or 3 hours in, and as I'm sure you're seeing in the footage, the camera is your biggest enemy. It's just impossible to see what's going on in closed quarter spaces. When you're in more open spaces, it's a little bit better, but just running around this game is a real pain. I felt that the controls weren't very intuitive, but I am interested in going back and trying this game because, again, it's got a really cool art style, And I think maybe if I give it a little bit more time, maybe I can adjust to those controls and really enjoy this, because it's truly a unique game. I also know that it has a sequel out there that I haven't tried, but if the game got a sequel, it must be pretty good, and the sequel's gotta be improved. So I want to play this one and eventually pick up that sequel and see if they got it right that time. Disgaea is a tactical sprite-based game. So basically, if you've ever played like Final Fantasy Tactics or something like that, that's pretty much the gist here. You get to make your own army out of all kinds of characters. Here you're seeing me play with Prinnies, the little penguin-like dudes. Somebody will get that joke. You play as the Demon Prince Laharl, and you have Etna, who's like a servant, so to speak. And you basically fight all these crazy monsters and enemies and progress through the game. And basically you're the Prince of Darkness, and you're trying to keep and reclaim your throne. It's pretty fun. It's goofy for sure. This is not a serious game, but it's definitely one that I suggest. I originally played this on the PlayStation 2. This is a port to the PSP, and personally I think this is a pretty great version. Anytime that I have to pick a version to play, I'm usually going with the PSP version. Dirt 2 sure is a driving game, and that's about all I can say about it. I didn't have any fun with this. It was my first time playing it, but I thought that the physics were off, the graphics were and it just wasn't fun. I didn't like it. It's not for me. It's not for me. I know it's not for me. That's okay. But yeah, that's Dirt 2. What can I say about Final Fantasy 1? This is obviously a remake. It's on the PSP. There's a couple of these remakes on the PSP. I feel like everything's been said about Final Fantasy, and there's really not much to be said. It's about as basic as it comes for JRPGs, but it's a good game. If you like the art style, power to you. I prefer pixels, so this is one that I haven't actually played that far into, but I did want it in my collection. Maybe one day when I get really bored or I'm on another long trip, I'll have a chance to sit down and really play through this version of the game and see how it holds up. God of War, Chains of Olympus. Now, I know there's a lot of God of War fans out there, and don't hate me for this, but I have never been into this series. I've tried many times, and it's just not for me. The character is not one that I can relate to or enjoy, and that's all I can really say. I'm just not into God of War. The only reason that I own this is, again, because it came in a lot at a yard sale. Grand Theft Auto, Chinatown Wars. This is a pretty cool game. It harkens back to the first two Grand Theft Auto games on the PlayStation 1. Those games are great. They're fun. They're top-down view, unlike pretty much every Grand Theft Auto game now. So it's pretty cool that they went back to the overhead view for this game. I haven't had a chance to really play it all that much, and to be honest, I'm not a huge Grand Theft Auto fan, but I could see myself going back to this one eventually. Again, one that I only own because I got it in a lot. I believe I actually got this one in a lot on eBay, so I couldn't complain. One day maybe I'll sit down and really have the time to play it, but it just doesn't, catch my attention at this time. Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. This is a game set in the universe of one of my favorite animes of all time. It's a pretty generic first-person shooter, I'm not gonna lie, but it's a first-person shooter on the PSP that plays pretty well, which I always find impressive because, when you're working on shooters with one stick, it can be tough, but this one works pretty well. The way that they work around it is your aim doesn't have to be perfect. You can kind of shoot in the area and it'll still hit the enemies, but it's still fun to walk around, pick up different weapons, shoot the bad guys, watch your little Tachikoma buddies, dispatch enemies with you. It's a lot of fun. The other thing that's really cool about this game is the original voice cast actually reprises their roles in this game. So you'll hear some familiar voices. If you're a fan of the Standalone Complex anime, you'll hear those voices, which is pretty cool. I always really enjoyed that.
But the all-important H88 report was left lying there looking like they read through it in a hurry.
Juiced. I don't have much to say about this one. This was the first time I was playing it. It was for this video. It's just, when it comes to racing games, I have other choices on the PSP that I'd rather play that I'm always going to go to, and Juiced isn't one of them, unfortunately. I'm sorry, Juiced, but you guys will hear about the racing games that I actually enjoy coming up in this video. Killzone Liberation is one that I actually never owned until recently. I did have the demo back when the PSP online services were still up. You could download demos for games, and Killzone Liberation was one of those demos. I always loved the demo, but I could never find this game locally. And back then, we still didn't really do that much shopping online. So if I couldn't find a game locally, I probably wasn't getting it. It's this really cool top-down shooter, and I love this style of gameplay. It reminds me of like, if you could control a single unit in a Command and Conquer game, that's what this game feels like to me, and I love it. Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. This came out pretty late in the console's lifetime, and it's brilliant. I can't think of anything else to say other than I love Kingdom Hearts. I love Birth by Sleep. I think it's probably the best game in the franchise, to be honest. It gave us some of the best characters as well. It did answer quite a few questions, you know, which is something that Kingdom Hearts loves to pose, is questions. And I really honestly think that the series has kind of gone downhill recently, but this is a fantastic action RPG on the system. I highly suggest picking it up on the PSP. It's great. You can also get Birth by Sleep in the HD collections on the PS3 and PS4, I believe. But for some reason, the PSP version still just feels like the best version to play, and I really enjoy it. Little Big Planet. It shares the name of the original PS3 title, but it's a completely different game. Instead of 3 planes of existence, you have 2 that you can switch between, but you know, it's Little Big Planet. It's a really cool 2.5D platformer, and I really suggest picking this one up for, you know, not just kids, but anybody who's a fan of old school platformers. This is like a physics-based platforming series, so it's a lot of fun to see what you can and can't do with your character and the physics of the game. I definitely would suggest this for any kids, but also just fans of platformers in general. Lumines. Now, I haven't played this game much, but as soon as I popped it in, I realized that it's something that I could very quickly get addicted to, because I caught about 15 minutes of footage when I didn't need to. It looks like it's some type of puzzle rhythm game. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but the music really caught my ear, which was why I kept playing. And then I kind of started to figure things out, and it definitely seems like one of those games that I need to give another shot later on. Lumines 2 is probably a lot of the same, so I'm not going to waste our time, you know, showing you more. But obviously the game was good enough to get a sequel. So I'm pretty excited to try the series out. Mega Man Powered Up. Now, we talked about this one earlier. I got this with my PSP 1000 for Christmas, and it was the first game that I played on my PSP, and it's amazing. It's a really great platformer. It's a remake and a reimagining all in one, so you can play the original levels in the like original Mega Man format, and then you have like a new style mode, which is the same characters, the same general idea, and the same gameplay, but with new reimagined levels, you know, fixed aspect ratio for the PSP. It's amazing. And the really cool thing about this game is that once you beat the bosses as Mega Man, if you can beat them without using any special weapons, you can play as the bosses you beat. So there are a total of 8 Robot Masters you can play as, and then there's 3 versions of Mega Man you can play as that you have to unlock. And then there's a bonus character that you had to download, and I believe that there was another one that you could unlock, and that's Proto Man and Roll. You could unlock them, and then Roll had all these crazy costumes. This game is great. There's tons of content here, and the game was so beloved by fans that, you know, recently Capcom announced that they were shutting down the servers. I know, right? Servers for a PSP game were still up? Well, yes. You could create levels in this game, and all of the levels were going to be taken down, and the fans got together and downloaded all of the levels before the server went down and backed them up. There's actually a save file being worked on now that will have all of the content in it all on one, and I'm so happy that we managed to preserve something that for me is really important and really for gaming is important. And this is definitely one of the games that if somebody said, hey, you know, I'm getting a PSP, what game should I get? This would definitely be one that I'm like, you have to get this. This game will keep you entertained for hours. You have to get Mega Man Powered Up. Mega Man Maverick Hunter X is another remake of a Mega Man game from a classic series. This is a remake of Mega Man X on the Super Nintendo. What's cool about this one is obviously the updated graphics look really nice, but the thing that I liked about it is it did have a bonus mode. It's nowhere near as in-depth as Powered Up was, but it does have a mode where you can play as one of the villains, Vile, and that mode alone really makes this worth it. Now you have to unlock him, so you have to beat the game first, but it's still worth it in my opinion. You know, I really enjoyed playing through the game as a different character. Metal Gear Acid is a tactical strategy action game. with card elements. I don't really know exactly how to explain it. It's an awesome game. It's tons of fun. There's lots of strategy and things to collect and different ways to play. And it's really difficult to explain what makes this game so good. If you're a Metal Gear fan, you're gonna be thrown off at first because you're expecting a stealth game, and this is still a stealth game. You still want to avoid enemies, but it's got such a unique vibe, and I've really never played another game that feels quite like Metal Gear Acid, other than its sequel. A lot of people say these games are hard. I don't think they're super hard. It just takes a while to get used to how the game expects you to play. But once you do, there is so much depth to this gameplay, and it's just tons of fun. This was a sleeper hit. I only recently played this, maybe about a year ago when I first started getting back into collecting for the PSP, and I was just floored that this was a launch title that I ignored for so long and absolutely fell in love with. This is another one that you definitely have to check out. Of course, I loved Metal Gear Acid 1 so much that I did pick up the sequel. I haven't had a chance to really play through it. I'm maybe about 10 hours into it. The one thing I will say is I'm not a huge fan of the art direction in the sequel. I liked that the first game looked more like the original Metal Gear Solid game. But, you know, to each his own. Maybe some people like this kind of cartoony, cel-shaded look. I'm still going to play through the game because I love the gameplay. And, you know, graphics aren't everything. I just really wish that they had stuck with the original art style. There is so much that I could say about Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops, but I'm just going to say Portable Ops and Portable Ops Plus are some of the best, wannabe Pokemon games I've ever played. And what I mean by that is Metal Gear Solid is it's iconic, right? And Pokemon is iconic. Well, this was kind of like Sony's way of having a game where it's like, hey, you're going to play Metal Gear Solid, but you're also going to collect units. And those units are going to have different stats and different abilities, and you're going to add them to your base, and you're going to make this awesome team, and they're going to have different weapons, and just, it really is like collecting Pokemon in a Pokemon game, except for in a more kind of mature atmosphere. I played this game so much back in the day, and I still love it every time I play it. Just going through the levels, collecting new soldiers, seeing what their abilities are, and just enjoying it. Portable Ops Plus is just an online expansion, and I really, really loved it. It just added more characters, and it's basically an endless mission mode. It's a ton of fun, though. You should definitely pick it up if you enjoy the first Portable Ops. Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. Now, I will admit, when I first got this game, I was kind of let down. I was expecting, more Portable Ops gameplay, because you can recruit soldiers in this, but you can't really play as them in the same way that you could in Portable Ops. But, the first time I played it, I didn't get very far into it. I actually didn't beat Peace Walker until I could play it in the HD collection on the PS3. But last year, I went back to the PSP version. I played through the whole thing, and I have to say, it's a lot better on the PSP. It just feels right at home. Once you get used to those controls, you really see what's so special about Portable Ops, and there's so much content in this game. This game is so long. There's so much to do in it, and it's a Metal Gear game. It's what everybody wanted on the PSP for so long. This is basically Metal Gear Solid 3 on the PSP. It's that good. It's definitely a must-have in your collection. Again, if you were first getting started with PSP games, this would be another one of those games that I'd say you have to get this. It also shares something with Portable Ops that I really like, which is these animated kind of comic-like cutscenes. They're just really cool, little comic panels that are alternatives to having fully rendered cutscenes. In this game, they're actually interactive, so you have to hit buttons to kind of make things happen in them. It's really cool. I really enjoy the art style. Not much to say about the Namco Museum collection here. Obviously, it's a bunch of old Namco arcade games, but they do have some really cool, reimagined, rearranged versions, like this Pac-Man kind of widescreen version made specifically for the PSP, and it's a lot of fun, but again, they're just old arcade games, and a couple of updated ones. It's pretty cool, but it's not something that I ever spent a lot of time on. But the visuals on the arranged versions are pretty cool. I really do like the way that Pac-Man looks in widescreen, but I don't spend much time playing these old arcade games like this. If I do play old arcade games, it's usually Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and Darkstalkers. Remember when I said that there were better racing games on the PSP? Well, this is one of them. I'm a huge Need for Speed fan. Most Wanted on the PS2 is one of my favorite racing games, and having it on the go on the PSP was pretty cool. However, there is actually a Need for Speed game on the PSP that I prefer to Most Wanted. But still, you know, this game is great. It does miss a little bit from the PS2 version. Like, there's no open world in the PSP version, whereas in the PS2 version you could kind of ride around wherever you wanted, and can't do that in this version, but it's still really cool. And as you can see, visually, the game is pretty stunning for a PSP. My favorite traditional racing game on the PSP, however, would have to be Need for Speed Carbon. This definitely has issues. There's a lot of pop-in. If you're going super fast on certain tracks, it just won't load. You'll be racing on nothingness until the track loads, but it's still a really fun game. And I really enjoy the story mode in this. It has this kind of cool little anime art style. I like that you can have other street racers aid you while you're playing. They'll do things like smash into other drivers or get in front of you and give you like a drift so you can go faster. There's all kinds of really cool things, and I really enjoy Carbon. Peter Jackson's King Kong. I was not expecting this to be a good game. I thought it was going to be a terrible movie game. And I started playing it, and I thought it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. There's no HUD, you're fighting giant monsters, and you're just trying to survive, and it just seems so cool, and I really can't wait to go back and play more of it. As you can see here, I'm fighting a giant enemy crab, and I was not expecting something to look this good on the PSP for one, and to play this well. You know, for a movie game, you expect them to be bad, and this actually seems pretty cool, so I really can't wait to get back to this one. Ratchet & Clank Size Matters. I spent way too much time playing this game, and I played it again recently. I always tend to go through it, unlock everything, all of the upgrades, go through challenge mode a couple times. I love Ratchet & Clank, and this game is no exception. It is by no means as good as any of the main console games, but it was on the PSP and it worked well. I would kind of call this like Ratchet & Clank 1.5. It was made by a lot of the people that worked on the original Ratchet & Clank at High Impact Games. This has that feel of Ratchet & Clank 1, but also some of the innovations that would come in Ratchet & Clank 2 and 3 on the PS2. So, you know, not a terrible game. It's relatively short and it's fun. The camera can be a little bit finicky, but the weapons are pretty cool, if not a little bit weak. But like I said, for Ratchet & Clank on the go, this always scratches the itch. Rengoku is a game that I have always wanted to get into, and I have played it a little bit recently, and it's kind of like a dungeon crawler. You go around finding parts for the robot you're playing as and changing out your weapons. They can be melee weapons or guns or bombs, all kinds of interesting things. I used to rent this one from Blockbuster when I was a kid, and I did enjoy it. The controls have not aged very well, and I think that there are some workarounds to that. You can only move around with the D-pad. I believe that there is a hack you can install on your PSP that will let you use the analog stick, and I should really try that. Rockman Dash, or Mega Man Legends as it's known here in the States. I have so much that I could say about Rockman Dash and Mega Man Legends, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to say that these are action platformer 3D Mega Man adventure games, kind of like if you took Mega Man and tried to make it into Ocarina of Time. I love these games, Rockman Dash 1 and 2, and I could say a ton about them, but I'm not going to because I do plan on doing a big, huge retrospective on the Legends series. So I'm not gonna, spoil that. I'm just gonna say that Mega Man Legends 1 and 2, or Rockman Dash 1 and 2, are some of my favorite games of all time. They have a really unique story, a really mysterious feeling, and I truly don't think that there have been any games that feel quite like the Legends series ever since it left us. I'll always be sad that we haven't gotten Mega Man Legends 3, and I can't wait to share with you guys what I really think about these titles, but for now, that's pretty much all that I have to say. I love Mega Man Legends. The cool thing about the PSP releases is that they are in widescreen, and they're relatively playable even for somebody who doesn't read Japanese. You can kind of get through it. Generally speaking, just running around talking to people, you can get through this game for the most part. SOCOM Fireteam Bravo. Once again, I had a friend that played this obsessively back in the day, and I never got into it, and I'm pretty bad at it. I tried playing it for the first time in years for this video, and I still couldn't get into it, and I was still really bad at it. In fact, I died 3 times just trying to record footage of myself shooting at somebody. Not my type of game, but I have people bring this up to me all the time, especially at work. If I take my PSP and I'm playing it in my downtime, you know, people will come and be like, "Oh my god, I used to play SOCOM on that when I was in the army." I'm like, I bet you did. I didn't, but I bet you did. Star Wars Battlefront 2, another PS2 port. I have never played the PSP version until this video. I used to play Battlefront 2 at my friend Jacob's house all the time when I was a little kid, and he was obsessed with Star Wars. I actually didn't get into Star Wars until a little bit later. In fact, I got into Star Wars when the prequels came out. So I feel like I actually had a pretty good Star Wars experience because I was introduced to it with the prequels, and then I saw you know, the original trilogy, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. So yeah, you know, like it or not, this game and those, you know, prequel movies got me into Star Wars, and this game's pretty fun. I really like that you can play as Darth Vader and Han Solo and anybody if you kind of rack up enough kills. It's super cool. I'm sure this would be more fun if I could still play it online today. Unfortunately, I was only able to play it solo on my PSP alone, and it's just not the same. I'm actually currently playing through Tales of the World Radiant Mythology again, and not only do I plan to complete it, I'm actually going to play the sequels as well. Radiant Mythology is like a collector's game, right? So it's a Tales game where all of the characters from other Tales games have somehow wound up in this world, and they're all interacting with each other. And they're like, how did we get here? What's happening? What do we have to do to go home? And you make your own character, and you kind of solve that mystery, and it's really cool. You make your character, you can customize what they look like, you can pick whatever class you want to play as, and you fight in this really cool like 3D linear battle system with tons of different abilities you can unlock. It's a ton of fun. The Tales series is one of my favorite action RPG series of all time. Every time I start Tales of the World, I get addicted to it like I am right now. And yeah, I can't wait to finish this one again. And I'm really excited to play the sequels as well. I did pick up the UMD versions. However, there are fortunately fan translations you can download and play on your PSP that are translated enough to where you can play through it as an English speaker. So I'm really excited to play the sequels. I can't wait. And I definitely would suggest picking this up if you're an RPG fan. It might not be for you if you're not into the Japanese aesthetic or the anime aesthetic, but I would still say give it a shot. Tales of Eternia is a PS1 port, and thank God it was ported to the PSP because this game is super expensive. Even on the PSP it's super expensive, but I hunted down a European copy because it unfortunately was never released in the US on the PSP, and I figured this would probably be my best way to play it. And I haven't gotten that far into it, maybe about 5 or 6 hours when I started it just to test it and make sure it worked. But I did really enjoy it. You know, I love the old school pixel style, so I had to pick it up. Something that's important to note about this, there is an updated version of the game that was released, and that's the version that I own, but apparently the first printing of Tales of Eternia on the PSP had a bug where it would freeze and you couldn't progress past that point. They released an updated version on UMD later on that doesn't have that bug. That's what I picked up. The only way to get around that is to download a save file that is right past that part where the game freezes, or have the updated version. Unfortunately, the old versions are just bugged. Now, I'm a huge fan of the original Parasite Eve on the PlayStation 1. Parasite Eve 2 is pretty good. This was supposed to be like Parasite Eve 3, and it's pretty much as far away from it as it could be. A lot of people hate this game. I actually quite enjoy it. Now, I'll admit it's nothing like Parasite Eve, but it's still fun. It's a cool third-person action shooter. Twisted Metal. I never got into Twisted Metal, and after playing this, I don't think I will. It's just not my style. It seems a bit, I don't know, teenaged to me. It just seems like it's trying really hard to be edgy, which is fine. I think it's cool. I like the visuals, but it's just not my kind of game. You know, car combat is not typically something I'm super into, and this just doesn't really, you know, pique my interest. But I hear a lot of people have a lot of really good memories with Twisted Metal head-on, so hey, power to you. It's not for me, but you know, I have it, and I played it for a few minutes. Maybe I need to give it another try, let me know. Wipeout Pure. Now, this is one of my favorite racing games of all time. I love Wipeout Pure. It might be my favorite Wipeout game, period. You know, it's a futuristic racing game where you race hovering cars and you shoot at the other cars with power weapons, and it's awesome. I love Wipeout. It's so fun, it's so fast. This is actually the slowest mode in the game. I chose to film the slowest mode so that you could actually see what's going on, but these cars can go ridiculously fast, and it actually takes a lot of skill to learn how to pilot them properly and turn them properly, and it's a ton of fun. The Wipeout series is awesome, and you can't go wrong with any of them, but on the PSP, I would pick Pure over the next game, Wipeout Pulse. Wipeout Pulse does have some other, cool features and stuff, but I don't know, it's nothing compared to Pure in my opinion. I would much rather play Pure. Pulse has some new ships and it looks a little bit nicer, but something about Wipeout Pure is just awesome. Pulse is fine, it's a good game too, I like it, it's just, if I had to pick one, I would tell you to get Pure. I really don't know how to describe this game. Yggdra, however you want to say it. I say Yggdra Union. It's a card-based tactical strategy game where you pick a card and it kind of determines your power, and then you move your units around on a predetermined board, and your units meet up or form a union, and they fight, and your character's ability in the card you pick to determine who's going to win. Now, at first, it seems really basic, like you have no input on how the battles turn out other than what you selected previously. Later on in the game, you have a little bit of input during combat where if you press right or left, you'll either go into kind of attack or defense mode. And that lets you determine how aggressive your units are versus how much damage they're taking. You can actually have an impact on if you win or lose a battle. And it's really unique. I found it surprisingly addictive. I love the sprites in this game. I think they're absolutely gorgeous. And Atlas published this, and it's fantastic. They actually have a lot of these kind of pixel-based games that share this same art style on the PSP, and they're very expensive and hard to find. This game is awesome. This is another one of those games where I didn't think I was going to enjoy it, and I turned out to get completely addicted to it. So yeah, Yggdra Union, you can pick it up on the PSP or the Game Boy Advance. Now, you guys know that I mentioned that My Chemical Romance was my favorite band, and of course, I have to have Life on the Murder Scene, the My Chemical Romance documentary, on the PSP. This is just a collector's item. I love that I have this. I love the artwork and the discs. It's just cool to have, and I wanted to show it off. The other thing that's really cool about this is it... I don't know what I was going to say was cool about it. I wrote it in the script to kind of be a prompt, and then I just forgot, so. MCR. I like MCR, that's all I can say. It's really cool to have this documentary on UMD. This is a pretty rare item, so as a collector of both PSP media and a big fan of My Chemical Romance, I had to buy this. Hey guys, Jonnicom here. Things might sound a little bit different for the next few minutes of the video. That's because I'm actually recording this audio after I recorded everything else, because I got these items after I recorded the rest of it. So if things sound a little bit different, or if I sound a little bit different, it's because I'm recording it in a different room at a different time. So I hope you understand, and hopefully you won't notice it all, but if you do, that's why. I picked up another PSP 3000 in spirited green. It popped up on my eBay suggestions one day, and it was in beautiful condition, and it looked like it had a screen protector on it. And anytime I see that, I'm really tempted to buy the console. So I did, and I waited about 2 weeks for it to arrive from Japan, and guess what? It was in almost immaculate condition, and I couldn't be happier. The only thing I have to do on this is put in a new screen, because it does have that yellowing tint on it, but once I put that new screen in, this will basically be a brand new PSP 3000 in spirited green, and I'm really excited about that. This is the holy grail of my PSP console collection now. This is the Miku Hatsune PSP 3000 in a nice tealish green blue. I really love the color of this console, and this has been kind of like the white whale in my collection for a really long time. I finally found one that popped up at a good price on eBay, and I pulled the trigger on it, and I'm glad I did because it's in pretty much immaculate condition. Initially, I thought that it was in almost perfect condition. However, you can see some scratches on the plastic screen lens in the right light, but it's not that noticeable, and that's something that I can fix if I ever choose to. The thing that I like most about this is the cool graphics on the back of Hatsune Miku and her logo. I think that's really cool. I love this sparkly teal finish on the console. It's just a beautiful thing, and it got me into Hatsune Miku and checking out her music, which honestly I like quite a bit. And I'm very happy to have this console in my collection finally. This color is just beautiful. Picked up this metallic blue PSP a couple weeks ago. I saw it really cheap, popped up on eBay. I think I paid like $30 for it, and it looked like it was in pretty good condition, and it is. I'm really happy to have this color. When I was younger, I always wanted this metallic blue PSP 1000, but then the 2000 and the 3000 came out, and it just didn't make sense for me to buy it. But now I have it, and it's a cool piece in my collection. Final Fantasy Tactics: The War of the Lions. This is a PS1 port to the PSP. A lot of people don't like this version of the game because it has some slowdown and it's stuck in widescreen, but I never really minded it. I quite like having it on the PSP, and if it really bothers you, there are patches out there, as well as just, getting the PS1 eBoot and playing that version on your PSP. I picked up 3 of the Hatsune Miku Project Diva games on the PSP. Now, the reason that I picked these up is because I also picked up the Hatsune Miku PSP 3000, and I figured I might as well get these and kind of complete the collection, and they're actually pretty fun rhythm games. The gameplay you're seeing here is not my best work, but I was playing this on an emulator with Bluetooth headphones. It created a whole bunch of lag, and I couldn't keep up with that. So I promise I'm not really that bad at these games, and I definitely look forward to playing them more in the future. I'm quickly discovering that I like Hatsune Miku's music a lot more than I thought I would. Hot Shots Golf. I haven't really had much time to play this one, but I will say that once I kind of got the controls down and understood how they worked, I was having quite a bit of fun. I was playing this at work, and I kind of found myself getting lost in it, and I had to stop myself, but I'm definitely looking forward to actually playing this and giving it a shot. I remember I had a friend when I was younger who really enjoyed this game, and he kept trying to show it to me, and at the time I just brushed it off as a sports game, but it seems like it's a lot more than that, and I can't wait to give it a shot. Rengoku 2: The Stairway to Heaven. Obviously this is a sequel to Rengoku, which we talked about earlier, and one of the things that I really like about this game is I feel like they started to kind of get into their aesthetic and really understand what they wanted things to look like, and looking back on it now and comparing it to something a little bit more modern, it really gives me vibes of Warframe. Does anybody else see that comparison? Dissidia Final Fantasy. Now, I have not had a lot of time to really get into this. It seems like a action fighting game. It seems really cool, and I'm really excited to give it a shot, see what it's all about. But I don't have much to say about it right now because I haven't had a chance to really sit down and play it. Anyways, guys, that is my PSP collection. My consoles, my games, and my movies. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know. If you'd like to see more videos like this one on other consoles, let me know. Go ahead and check out the other videos. We have a PSP documentary that we made that kind of blew up. And of course, we have retrospectives on other games as well. Thanks, guys, so much for the support. I, again, really hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.